Alright guys, this next day is now talking about the length of things. So the first thing we have is something we've already talked about, but it's been a while, is circumference. Circumference is the distance around the outside of the circle. So if you were to measure the whole outside of a circle, that's what circumference measures. So if you don't remember, I had a little rhyme for you. I put it over there on the right. To find circumference, it's twinkle, twinkle, little star. Circumference equals 2 pi r. There is a secondary formula, though. You can use, instead of 2 pi r, you can use circumference equals pi times d, because 2 radiuses is the same as a diameter. Okay? The new formula for today is this next one. It's finding arc length. So arc length would be, if you look at the picture on the right, if I wanted to know how long this piece was, if I were to flatten it out and measure it with a ruler. Arc length is always going to be in something like inches and feet. It is never in degrees. We're actually trying to say how long it would be if we made it flat. So to find that, we're using this formula here, which if you notice, all it does is it takes the circumference formula and it puts a fraction in front of it. So you just need to remember arc length is some fraction of the circumference. So the first problem is asking us to find the circumference of the circle, of the whole circle. So to find the circumference, twinkle, twinkle, little star, circumference equals 2 pi r. But in the first example, they did not tell me the radius. So the radius is really half of the diameter. We'd have to take half of 15, which is 7.5. So it's going to be 2 times pi times the radius is 7.5. And then if you notice, we get a circumference of 15 pi. The directions are going to ask you to leave it in pi form. We're just going to put regular centimeters on as units. That's also, if we just did pi times the diameter, that's the shortcut, is you don't have to take half of it to find the radius for the circumference problems. You can use the diameter instead. For number 2, they do give us the radius, so it's twinkle, twinkle, little star, circumference equals 2 pi r. That's going to be 2 times pi times 5.8. And again, we're leaving pi in the answer, so you're just going to do 2 times the 5.8, which is 11.6 pi inches. Okay? So now the next section is the new stuff for today. We are looking at finding the length of the darkened arc. So you're going to have to pay attention on everything on your homework. We're looking for this purple section right now. We want to know how long that is. I know in degrees it's 90, but I want to know how long it is. So we're going to start by taking the 90, putting it out of 360, because that's the fraction of the circle we have right now. And then it's times the circumference formula, so it's times 2 times pi times the radius is 10. And then we're going to type everything in our calculator except for the pi, because we're going to leave pi in the answer. So you can do 90 divided by 360 times 2 times 10. I'll show you a picture of what that should look like. So I just typed everything in the calculator that wasn't pi, and I'm going to hit enter, and you should get that this turns out to be 5 pi. And add in the units, that should be centimeters. Okay. For number 4, we're trying to find the measure of this darkened section. So we're going to start with what fraction of the circle it is. It's 120 out of 360. And then we're going to do 2 times pi times the radius. It would really be 7.5. Be careful that 15 is measuring the diameter. So we're going to put 7.5 there. And again, I'm just typing in, make sure you can type this in your calculator correctly. Everything but the pi. This one also turns out to be 5 pi. But that's in feet. Alright, let's try some more. Let's try another one here, number 5. We now want this darkened section. So this darkened section right now is not the 120. So this is where you have to use what we talked about yesterday. That's the major arc on the other side of 120. So you need to think about what math you need to do to find that major arc. You should be subtracting from 360. It's 360 minus 120. That other side is going to be 240. So then we can do 240 over 360 is the fraction of the circle we want, times the whole circumference would be 2 times pi times the radius is 9. And then I'm just doing 240 divided by 360 times 2 times 9 on my calculator. And this section comes out to be 12 pi. If you take a second and try number 6, I'm going to have you fill it in on Edpuzzle. And then this is my explanation. It should be 180 over 360 is the part we want, times 2 times pi times the radius should be 11. So that's 180 divided by 360 times 2 times 11. And you should get that that is 11 pi meters. I didn't put units on the last one, centimeters. Okay. Notice for this one you could have also just said, instead of the 180 over 360, you could have used 1/2 because it's half the circle. Alright, number 7 is the word problems, and you're going to see more of these as we talk about area as well in the next section. And I want you to be able to think through, based on what's going on in the problem, whether we're talking about circumference or area. So in number 7 it says a motorcycle has a tire that is 25 inches in diameter. And a monster truck has a tire that is 66 inches in diameter. To the nearest tenth of an inch, how much farther does the monster truck travel in one revolution than a motorcycle tire? So it's understanding what that one revolution is talking about. So if I started here, if you imagine you were a fly on that wheel, and the wheel rotated around, or a nail or something, one whole rotation would mean that that fly or nail is traveling all the way around the outside of the circle. So when it says one revolution, that means that you're doing one circumference. So you need to be able to read into that you're staying on the outside to do a revolution. That is one circumference that we need to find for each of these. So we just got to use the formula. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, circumference equals 2 pi r. And the r in this first one is 12.5. So we get 25 pi. Then we'll find the circumference for the second one. That's going to be 2 times pi times the radius is 33, which is 66 pi. You could have just done diameter times pi as well. And now we have to answer the question. The question is, how much farther does it go? So essentially that's just a different way of asking you for the difference between them. We want to know what the gap is between them. So we should be subtracting those two values from each other. And that's going to give me 41 pi. And then they said something important here. They want to know to the nearest inch. So for these, because they're real world problems, I want you to put the pi in your calculator or put 3.14 in your calculator. Either way, you'll get the same approximation. Should get 28.8 or 128.8, which is going to bump up to 129 inches as the difference between those two. So there's a couple of word problems on your homework assignment. I need you to think about them. Some of them are going to use circumference, some of them are going to use the arc length formula. You have to decide if you're going all the way around the circle or only partially around the circle. That's the difference between those two formulas. Okay? So you have a class kick to do first, and then if you can work on the homework, we will go over that first thing tomorrow. Have a great rest of your day.